Hello internet friends, Napyet here with 5 games you absolutely can't afford to miss from 2023. Now, not all these games were released this year, these are the games I played and enjoyed the most. More and more I find that the launch window of a game is not always the best time to play it. Many games release in a buggy state, need features adding, or they're simply in early access for a long period of time, so when you first jump into them, it's entirely different for everyone. But these are the games I played this year, enjoyed the most, and if you missed them, I'd highly recommend. So without further ado, let's begin. Number 5, Landlord Super. This is a quirky indie game developed by a small studio in the UK and still technically in early access. Although in my opinion there's enough there now for you to get at least a dozen or so hours of fun out of this title as you learn the mechanics and discover its quirky game loop. But the real selling point of this game is its setting and tone. If you're from the UK particularly, it's a throwback to 80s Britain and TV shows like Only Fools and Horses and Boys from the Black Stuff. You play an aspirant landlord who's determined to get off the dole by doing a house up for rent. You build everything, learning the basics of multiple trades or travel to town with your wheelbarrow, picking up scrap when your funds run low. It's a funny, eccentric game that presents life in Maggie Thatcher's Britain as if it were a darkly comic sitcom. Nothing else like it out there, and for that reason alone it's worth experiencing, I feel, and it's only 10 quid. Number 4, Phantom Brigade is a turn-based tactics game where you control giant mechs. The unique selling point is this time mechanic where you're able to see the future. You have to plan your turns in advance, account for every enemy move or attack, then you watch the action unfold in these beautifully animated cinematic replays. Either that or you tear your hair out as the enemy you didn't notice shoots you in the back. It's one of those games where the core mechanic is not only intriguing and takes time to learn, which is not a bad thing in my opinion. Having to put some time in to understand a game, I actually enjoy that process. It's so unique that you end up coming up with goals of your own. I ended up doing things not because they were the best strategy, but because they would just look the coolest during those replays. Boosting into the path of an oncoming mech so they slam into your shield, which is also the size of a house. It never gets old. Cyberpunk 2077 is one of those games that launched with bugs, missing features and multiple broken systems. After being patched for 2 years and the 2.0 update in 2023, I'm happy to report it's finally a solid game that's worth your time and money. The storytelling is second to none and there's never been a more immersive cyberpunk universe in a game. It's still not perfect. You can see where the devs perhaps overstretched in terms of creating a living world. They never really get there the way Rockstar did with GTA 5 and looks to be doing with GTA 6. But you can at least now enjoy those elements that CD Projekt did pull off really well. For me, the characters and the story, it was marred before because there were too many problems. But seriously, the writing in this game is second to none and the animation, it's about the best I've ever seen. With the expansion Phantom Liberty now available, there's never been a better time to play Cyberpunk 2077. XCOM 2 is one of my favourite games of all time and I returned to it this year to see if it had dated at all. It's been 7 years since it launched after all. The good news is it hasn't, although having said that I'm not sure if that is such a good thing because you would think by this time it would have been knocked off its throne by another turn-based tactics game, possibly even XCOM 3, but it seems like the team responsible have moved on from Firaxis now, so we might not be seeing that game for a while. Anyway, XCOM 2 is still as atmospheric, tactically engaging and excruciatingly difficult as it ever was. The Chosen can still break your spirit when they wipe your team of elites, because that core notion of building up your squad, growing attached to them and then potentially losing them infuses every mission with this make or break tension. If you haven't played XCOM 2, you really should. I would say it's probably up there in my top 3 games of all time. It's a modern classic, maybe not even that modern anymore, but one of those games that is an example of the pinnacle in its genre. Just like my number 1 pick, which is Baldur's Gate 3. I really didn't have high hopes for this game because Larian's previous games, they didn't really grip me. I thought Obsidian Entertainment, where many of the devs for the original Baldur's Gate still reside, or maybe Owlcat Games, who made the excellent Pathfinder games, would have been a better choice. How wrong I was. Larian knocked it out of the park with Baldur's Gate 3. It's a game that's cinematic in the style of Dragon Age, but with a range of choices and freedom that only usually occur in much smaller indie titles. It caters to both the casual fan, with its systems being easy to understand through slick presentation, and also roleplay aficionados who are looking to multiclass and dive into the minutiae. The characters are deep and interesting, with nuanced personalities that only rarely become annoying, and the acting and writing are second to none. This game is tied with Cyberpunk for me in terms of how the animation, beautiful graphics and top-notch writing dovetail together to just create something truly special. On several occasions it was clear to me also that Larian, they know the tropes and they're deliberately choosing to subvert them. That's almost always the mark of greatness for me, when you think you know what's going to happen and they've got there before you and they've basically fooled you and surprised you. That's originality, essentially, and several of the storylines, several of the characters in this game did that for me. Sometimes with lists like this, I wonder why I bother putting some games on there. Everyone knows Baldur's Gate 3 is great, everyone knows XCOM 2 is great, but I suppose I've added my voice to the consensus in that case. But hopefully there are also some other games on there like Phantom Brigade and Landlord Super that you might not have tried. If you want to know more about any of these games, I've left links in the description of the video to full reviews on my channel. Have a good Christmas and New Year's, guys. Thanks for watching. I've been Napyet, and I'll see you next time.